Hi, my name is Sorta Shram and I am a student at Ball State University. This is my last semester. Currently, I am working as an RBT at a private clinic. In the future, I am planning to continue working in a private clinic just like where I am working right now. What is my experience with behavioral assessment? I have done a few FBA under supervision of a PCBA. I would like to discuss about Functional Behavior Assessment or FBA. What is FBA? FBA is a system of data collection of the environmental event before and after a behavior in order to understand its communicative function. This slide shows the hierarchy of FBA. There are three categories in FBA. The first one is indirect functional assessment, then descriptive functional assessment, and on the very top is functional analysis or FA. The higher up we go in the hierarchy, it will require more effort. However, the result will be more reliable and accurate. Here are the steps on how to conduct FBA. First, collect, interpret, test, and develop. What are we collecting? We are collecting information via descriptive and indirect assessment. Then we interpret information from assessment and formulate hypotheses about the purpose of function of behavior. We test hypotheses using functional analysis. Then we develop intervention based on the function of the problem behavior. Why conduct FBA? First, intervention based on FBAs are more effective. Reinforcement-based interventions are more likely to be implemented. Intervention based on FBAs are more durable. FBA can help identifying antecedent variables so that we can create antecedent strategies. FBA help in identifying reinforcement contingencies and we can create consequence strategies. Lastly, FBA help in identifying reinforcers for alternative replacement behavior. The FBA hierarchy showed that functional analysis or FA is part of FBA. Henley 2017 stated that these three types are all functional assessment. The term functional analysis is employed only when some aspect of the environment is systematically altered while problem behavior is being directly observed. The traditional environmental conditions employed in functional analysis are for attention, escape, and tangible. The alone condition is to assess for automatic sensory. The play condition is the control condition. Now I'm going to start discussing the three articles I chose for the literature reviews. First article is Functional Assessment of Problem Behavior, Dispelling Myths, Overcoming Implementation Obstacles, and Developing New Lore by Henley, 2017-2012. The purpose of this article is to debunk myths surrounding the functional analysis process. The author also reviewed obstacles to implement aspects of functional analysis and how to overcome these barriers. Lastly, Henley discussed the characteristics of functional analysis procedure and answered the question of who can implement functional analysis safely. Most common approaches to start an FBA is to start with indirect assessment. If the result is uncertain, then conduct a descriptive assessment. If there are competing hypotheses regarding variables controlling the behavior, then a standard functional analysis is utilized. Henley proposed some rationale to consider when conducting a functional assessment. Do not rely heavily on closed-ended indirect assessments such as math or QABF because they are unreliable. Descriptive assessment only teaches us about the environmental event, demonstrating a correlational relationship, not causal relationship. Standard functional analysis, the rapid alteration of conditions, can be troublesome. Instead, Henley suggested to use an open-ended semi-structured interview. Then asking simple questions and figuring out the variables most likely to affect problem behavior. In this article, Henley outlined 9 common obstacles to conduct a functional analysis and how to overcome these barriers. Here, I would only list the top 4. First, functional analysis takes too much time. Research has reported the efficacy of 5 and 10-minute sessions are as valid as longer sessions. Functional analysis are too complex. Implementing the procedure and interpreting data of functional analysis is possible with little training. Functional analysis are too risky for the client or for the person conducting the analysis. A properly designed functional analysis will result in a lower intensity of problem behavior. Functional analysis are too difficult to sell to constituents. Behavior analysts should build a positive rapport with the parents and other stakeholders. Henley maintained that someone with a BCBA credential should be the one who is in charge of designing and conducting functional analysis. The main reason is the skill involved in designing and conducting functional analysis, such as the ability to build a relationship, clinical interviewing, direct measurement of behavior, single subject experimental design, data graphing, analysis and interpretation, reinforcement schedules, and understanding of behavioral processes. The next article is by Oliver, Pratt, and Norman, 2015, a survey of functional behavior assessment methods used by behavior analysts in practice. I found some background information in this article to be very interesting. First, there is not a standard specification of method to be used when conducting FBA. There are numerous strategies. However, research literature has shown that these methods have varying degrees of effectiveness in identifying functional relations. Secondly, there is very little study done to examine the extent to which behavior analysts use FBA in their practice. The author mentioned 2 studies address this question, and both are over 10 years old. The method of this study is using surveys sent to BCBA of all levels, and the participant responding to the email sent by the BACB is 724 correspondent. I am going to highlight a few points from the result of the study. First is the practitioner use of FBA method. Using a 5-point scale, the participants were asked to indicate how often they use various assessment methods to help determine the function of behavior. Descriptive assessment were reported to be most commonly used, up to 94%. Using a 5-point Likert scale, participants were asked about their opinion regarding the utility of various FBA methods. Most respondents agreed that FBA are essential for developing effective intervention strategies, 92.4%. Most interestingly, however, is that 1/3 of respondents reported that informant assessment were as useful as functional analysis. Practitioners were asked to indicate the type of training they received on the various of FBA method. The majority of respondents reported receiving formal training either by taking coursework, reading relevant literatures, attending professional workshops, or receiving on-the-job training. The educators were asked to identify which of FBA method they emphasize when teaching students in behavior analysis. Most educators responded that they emphasize the use of descriptive assessment as well as the use of functional analysis. The last article is by Romani, Luring, Hayes, and Bors, 2022, Comparison of Functional Assessment Procedures to the Functional Analysis of Problem Behavior. The main purpose of this article is to replicate previous studies to show the exact and partial convergence between indirect and descriptive assessment of FBA to the EFA, or Experimental Functional Analysis. The purpose also to extend previous research by evaluating the convergence between different combinations of indirect and descriptive assessment to the experimental functional analysis. So what they did in this experiment is conducting all of the indirect assessment method and then the direct assessment method, the combination of indirect and assessment method, and then compare it to the result from experimental functional analysis. The result is that in general, all combination of FBA procedures showed a poor exact match to the experimental functional analysis. Indirect and descriptive method pose a challenge to the practitioner in pinpointing the exact function of behavior. In contrast, when comparing the result from the indirect and descriptive assessment to EFA, there was a high partial convergence. In other words, the FBA will more likely identify at least one function that is also indicated by the EFA. Many behavior analysts use only the FBA method. Hence, behavioral treatment may contain unnecessary but not harmful treatment component. Functional behavior assessment should be conducted when receiving a new client. Problem behaviors are any behavior that impedes students' learning. The difference between an FA and FBA. FA is part of FBA. As mentioned earlier, there are three general FBA strategies: indirect assessment, direct assessment, and lastly, functional analysis. What makes FA stands out is that in FA, there is an element of manipulation of environmental conditions to test hypotheses. In contrast, indirect and direct FBA do not include testing. Rather, we simply gather information from different sources and then directly observe the client in the natural environment where the behavior occurs naturally. In my organization, requires that we conduct FBA when we have new client as required by the company's policy and insurance policies. The BCBA can choose which strategies to use, FBA or FA. At bare minimum, when conducting FBA, both indirect and direct observation must be used together. Functional analysis is rarely utilized because it requires some expertise. Therefore, the BCBA must have proper and formal training before conducting one. FBA is the most common used method in my organization. First step is always interviews with the primary caregivers. Second step, the BCBA gather more information from medical records, diagnosis report, and/or past FBA. Lastly, BCBA will conduct direct observation, asking RBT to complete ABC data and/or QABF. The process of FBA can take about 1 to 2 weeks to complete. Sometimes it takes a while for the RBTs to complete QABF or have enough data on ABC narrative to formulate hypotheses about function of behavior. I would like to learn more about functional analysis. It is difficult to get on-hand training of conducting functional analysis. I have the opportunity to practice indirect and direct assessment in fieldwork. I think both my fieldwork and my coursework are compatible and helpful in increasing my confidence to use my knowledge. The first question I have is, what are some barriers do you encounter when conducting an FBA? My second question is, what behavior is the most challenging to find the proper replacement behavior? Thank you for watching, and I am looking forward to any feedback.